Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison and apparently not loving the experience so far. So much so that according to reports from inside, she is being labeled prison Karen. Is that true or not? We're gonna dive into the evidence because we do, after all, know, we don't fail to acknowledge that for many people locked up, the experience is devastating, sometimes needlessly so. It's systemic problems that we've been advocating for fixing for some time. So let's see if the particular complaints that Ghislaine Maxwell has been making line up with what we think about prison life. By the way, she has made 400 complaints so far. Bear that in mind. She apparently has complained about lackluster vegan menu options. She whined about unfair treatment, demanded that authorities at her prison in Florida give her immediate access to black hair dye. She apparently got hypoallergenic bedding after complaining to staff that the standard issue prison pillows were triggering her allergies. I suffer from allergies, so I sort of understand that one. Anyway, she complains about inmates, she complains about guards, she complains about the laundry lady being rude to her. According to an insider, she is, quote, as I said, the prison Karen. She can file a grievance over anything. She has over 400. She complains about food, bedding, when they cancel temple because of bad weather, or late setting up her legal calls. She had this big debate about hair dye. She apparently paid an inmate $200 for hair dye before she did a video interview with British TV. I did not know that you could still do televised international interviews while you're in prison, but apparently that is actually a thing. She also says that prison authorities are breaching her rights by shining a torch in her cell every 15 minutes, subjecting her to invasive searches and filming her at all hours. Those seem like more significant infringements to me than some of this other stuff, and seems more in line with what we've heard about other prisons. But I also want people to bear in mind that whatever it is that you're imagining when you imagine the prison that Ghislaine Maxwell is in, you're probably not quite right. She was supposed to go to FCI Danbury. That's the prison that inspired the series Orange is the New Black. Instead, she ended up going to this prison in Tallahassee, and you can actually see it right here. The front of it looks identical to a high school in Southern California. My point of view, not the high school I went to in Connecticut, but so not loving the experience. Bear in mind, it's prison. Also bear in mind what she did. I'll remind you in a little bit, but Sharon, what do you make of all this?
Once a Karen, always a Karen, that's number one. And I too, when you flashed the picture of where she is, I was thinking, Zach, Kelly, Lisa, it looked like Saved by the Bell or something. But I will say this, it's made me a little bit angry. I was laughing a little bit. And I know you're gonna get into what she's there for, but how dare you, Karen? And it's so typical. How dare you? Intrusive searches, filming without permission or against her will or all day or whatever. Do you understand the victims here? Okay, her victims were treated horrifically, life-altering ways. The fact that she's doing interviews in this minimum security prison and paying for bad hair dye, it just makes me so angry too. America. As I know, she's in the federal system, right? Is this the federal system?
I believe so.
Yeah,
low security federal correctional institution.
I wish she was in a state prison in Georgia, where I live. And I'm not for prisons, private prison. I'm not for that. But she needs to understand what some other people are going through. And some of them, I believe, still illegally. I mean, it's really slavery is what's going on. I don't know if they're actually picking the cotton in all places, but that's really what's going on here. She could use a dose of reality, okay, that HBO doesn't pen.
Yeah, I almost don't even like talking about this because you and I, everyone watching this, we have so many different places that we can funnel our empathy and compassion into. And if at some point you run out, I think that's understandable considering all the different things that we track every day. So I don't particularly have a lot of empathy for someone who was literally a supplier for one of the most notorious rapists of our time, who delivered like underage girl after underage girl to be abused and manipulated and literally raped over and over and over again. Like, so when I hear that, oh, she doesn't get to make her hair the color she wants, I don't have a lot of empathy for it. But I also don't like focusing too much on that because I do think that prison reform is very necessary. I just feel like, how about we get most prisons to the point where they're worried about the vegan food options? Like, I'm a leftist. I personally think that if you're a vegan and you're locked up, you should probably be able to eat vegan food. But I don't know, when you've been rich your whole life and you've been able to get away with it and you've been shielded by your connections and all that, I don't know, I'm more worried about the people who are being locked up in solitary confinement for literally years, who are being driven insane by the conditions they're in, rather than you who can't look as spiffy for your televised interview as you'd like. I don't know.
Yeah, and
don't
again,
traffic kids.
Remember, again, the victims. You said 400 complaints. She was able, and her cohort, okay, they were able to escape any consequence for so long because nobody cared about these people. Yeah. Nobody cared. And I just wish that the 400 complaints, and I'm with you, you let her eat vegan, who cares? Just don't let her back out, okay? For now, I don't really want to pay for her. But the fact that she's being listened to, and there's an anonymous source, I would rather, why not go on the record? Because they're afraid to, okay? They're afraid, probably not just of their jobs, but of her. It's just so, here we are again. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Karen.
Anyway, it reminds me of, I'll close on this, Marjorie Greene, who every once in a while has to pretend that she cares about what's happening to prisoners because some of the prisoners tried to overthrow the government on January 6th. And I just think, like, maybe do something about it. Like, how about get rid of solitary confinement for the insurrectionists and everyone? How about that? But no, that would be progress. We can't have it. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.